It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather's senior meteorologist, Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Hello there, South Mississippi, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. I was just outside enjoying a nice feeling morning with an amazing sunrise, and we're going to take a look at a time-lapse video and a few pictures from viewers of this morning's sunrise. And we're also going to take a look at how nice it might feel today with some lower humidity. But before we get to that, we do want to talk about the tropics. There has been an update from the National Hurricane Center regarding the potential for tropical development in the Atlantic. So without further ado, let's get to your tropical update here as we get to your Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. So far in hurricane season 2025, there have been 6 named storms. Fernan, the most recent named storm. That system fell apart last Thursday, August 28th, and Gabrielle is the next available name on the list. You can see here, as you take a look at what all of those storms have done so far this year, good news, most of them have stayed away from land. Only 2 systems have made a landfall so far this year, and both of them were just tropical storms, as some might say. Barry in Mexico, Chantal in South Carolina. Although the flooding from Chantal did cause some dangerous weather in the Carolinas, and the remnants of the moisture from Barry did cause deadly flooding in that story we heard earlier this year in Texas. So even just a tropical storm can still have some weather with it that can bring impacts. And there's a look at the place that we're watching for this Tuesday near the Cape Verde Islands. That's where the National Hurricane Center is continuing to monitor a tropical wave. We've been monitoring this tropical wave for a number of days now, but the chances for it becoming more than just a tropical wave are increasing. And today they are at their highest. So it looks like more likely than not, this thing is going to become a depression or storm. The good news is that close to home, we are not tracking any tropical development in the Gulf. We're also not tracking any tropical development in the Caribbean. And in most of the Atlantic, not really tracking much, but it's just this one area near the Cape Verde Islands. We can take a look at some of the atmospheric conditions. What's the environment looking like where this system is trying to form? Is the water too cold? Is the water warm enough? Well, the answer right there. The water is warm enough. Over a good section of the entire Atlantic basin, you've got water temperatures well into the 80s. Anywhere in red on this map, the water temperature is 80 degrees or warmer, at least at the sea surface. So that means most areas you're going to see the water warm enough to support development. Now, if you want to be very specific where this wave is, it could maybe just move over. If I draw, maybe if it takes a track like this, it might move over some less warm water that you can see in this zone here. If it moves over this less warm water here, that would, at least in the short term, limit its potential for development. But if it kept going past that, there's more warm water past that. So even though there's like a little pocket of relatively cooler water, it's not a large area of relatively cooler water. So I don't think that this will harm the potential for development. Looks like the water temperatures are favoring development generally for this particular area we're watching. Now that's at the sea surface, but what about the water temperatures down below? How deep does that warm water go? And there's actually not a lot of depth to the warm water in the vicinity of that system trying to form. In this whole area here, the warm water is very shallow, and so if you went into the water at the surface, it's warm, and then down below it's kind of cooler. So if you get a system trying to form over that, and you've got the circulation, the winds in the system, it's sloshing that water around, the warm surface water moves away, and then cooler waters from the depth come up to replace that. That's a process called upwelling. And so if we see some upwelling in that zone, that might help to limit the potential for development. That's one thing that could work against development. So sea surface temperatures generally working for, but sea depth temperatures generally working against. Now, if this particular area managed to get away from that zone and to get a little bit farther off to the west, maybe in this area here, out here into the Caribbean, near the Gulf Stream current, all of that, if it were able to go over there, there's some really warm water beneath the surface, especially the warmest water in the entire basin beneath the surface stretches from near the Yucatan Peninsula to near the Bahamas. So any system trying to form there would have quite the depth of warm water to work with, and it would be able to continue to grow really strong, as the warm water is what fuels tropical development. A couple other factors that we watch. One of them is the wind upstairs in the atmosphere. Are there some strong winds upstairs in the air? And what we can see from this particular information, the modeling is showing that yes, there are some strong winds. We call this wind shear. There are some strong winds where it matters, which is over the eastern coast. So we got a lot of high wind shear, which makes it for a very hostile environment for any tropical system trying to form near the Gulf Coast, near the East Coast. Right now, the system in place, there's an upper swirl that is located over Canada. If I had to draw it, it'd be located right about there. And so that upper low, that upper swirl there is helping to create some really strong wind shear, which is why you might be seeing on social media some people saying the Gulf is closed, etc. Well, that's why, because of that upper trough over the East Coast that's causing a lot of wind upstairs in the air. So if there were a tropical system, maybe a storm, maybe a hurricane, and it's out here and it's trying to move toward the East Coast, first of all, that wind shear would turn it right around. But secondly, even if it tried to move underneath that, it would really cut into the system. All those strong winds would cut into the system and disrupt the circulation and make the system lopsided, make the system weaker, et cetera, et cetera. So that's good news that right now over the East Coast, over the Gulf Coast, we got some really hostile winds. But way out in the water, there's not as much of that. You're seeing a number of places out in the Atlantic near that disturbance trying to form where there's just kind of low wind shear. You don't see those blue colors. You barely see any green colors in this region here. So it's got a low wind shear environment, which would actually favor some development in the near term. Final thing that we take a look at is how much moisture is in the air. And where that disturbance is trying to form, there's a good amount of moisture along with it. So where it is, it's got some moisture to work with. But where it's going, it's about to move into a large area of dry air, so that could actually work against. So a lot of competing features there. Surface water, for. Depth water, against. Wind shear, for. Dry air, against. So competing features for development, but I think overall what's going to win out is just going to be that it's probably the dry air probably won't have a huge amount of an impact on this, and so it is going to be able to probably get a little bit better organized. We got some computer models we can give you a look at here. So here's one of the computer models. This is one of our in-house models, the RPM computer model. So you're not going to be able to see this on some website or whatever. It's with our computer graphics system. You can only find this with computer graphic software like we have. Anyway, there's a look at what that area is trying to get better organized. We'll see if a surface circulation can form, if thunderstorms can develop around that center, if a well-defined center is there. All of those have to be necessary in order for a depression or storm to form. And I mean, the wind circulation looks like it is kind of pulling together. By the time we get to Thursday, you can see that counterclockwise circulation, it kind of has more of an organized appearance by the time we get to Thursday p.m. and even later Thursday night. It really begins to look like at least a depression, if not a storm, by that point in time. Now, beyond that, we take a look at the global models. That's our in-house computer model is really high resolution, but it can only go out about 2 or 3 days. Now we can use lower resolution models that go out a little bit further into the future. We call these, in the meteorology business, we call them the global models because they are planetary. They have a large surface area. The in-house model, if we zoomed out, well, actually this is a global model, but it does have a higher resolution than these. Anyway, we pick up the clock at Thursday. What you're looking for, the yellow color would be the GFS model showing where a system would be. The green color would be the European computer model showing where a system would be. So we're looking at two different scenarios at one time. And right off the bat, you've got the GFS computer model showing a tropical system on Friday right there. So perhaps a tropical storm. GFS calling for a tropical storm probably on Friday. Now, European model, you don't see any green there. So the models are disagreeing. One model showing a storm, the other model showing pretty much nothing. We go to the whole weekend and it stays that way. And then we go to next week. And at this point, Tuesday, September 9th, we're already 7 days in the future. Understand that the further you go into the future, the less accurate a forecast generally can be, especially with some of these long-range models. Now we're more than 7 days into the future, Wednesday, September 10th. And finally, the European model wants to play. It shows a storm forming there at a different location. So you already have the models disagreeing on time, but also location. Model separation by more than 500 miles. Will the storm be located here? Will the storm be located, about 700 miles to the northeast of Puerto Rico? Or will the storm be located about 600 miles to the due east of Puerto Rico? Depends on which model scenario comes true. Maybe neither of them come true. But in general, the general idea here is perhaps by the middle of next week, maybe we are going to be watching a tropical depression or storm or some kind of system somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, somewhere around 700-ish miles to the east or northeast of Puerto Rico. So, write those things down somewhere, check them again next week, see how well the models performed. Set a reminder for you to check those things when you check the forecast next week to see if we actually have a system sitting in that area by the middle of next week. So we go a little bit further in time and looking at some good information from the GFS model as far as what the Gulf Coast would consider good news. It shows a pretty big system, pretty powerful system there, but it is turning to the north, turning toward Bermuda. Meanwhile, the European model a little bit more toward the south, so that's not what you would want to see. A system that trends to be a bit more to the south, has a better chance of getting closer, but at least in the short term, it does look like we got a long time to watch this stuff. There's not going to be any sudden development with this, since we're going to have to wait more than 7 days in the future before we can finally even begin to maybe see a system out in the Atlantic that both of the models show somewhere around 700 miles east of Puerto Rico. Don't worry though, we will keep you posted on the latest information as we continue to monitor the tropics in the coming days. But the good news for now is that there's no local threat from this in South Mississippi or on the Gulf Coast for at least the next 5 to 7 days. So keep checking back for updates, but at least for now, looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to switch gears and talk about the sunrise this morning and then talk about the sneaky low humidity that we could see today. So first of all, look at this sunrise. It was so cool to see this morning. I'm just going to let this go looping on repeat because it's going to be something that you want to see over and over. And I'll throw before I set it into motion, we are going to put the timer, if we can, back on the screen. So there's that. No. Nope. I'm going to find, or maybe I won't. Is this it? No. I just wanted the background. Oh, here it is. Is this it? Yes. Okay. Sorry about all that. You're watching me work on the fly. Okay, so anyway, sit back and just watch this time lapse of this sunrise. It was incredible. It just takes your breath away, that burst right there of color in the sky. I mean, if you were up and you were watching that this morning, your jaw basically just drops. I know mine did. I saw it in the studio. We were watching the tower cams in the studio, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way it actually looks like that outside. I got to go see for myself. Sure enough, I went outside, and yeah, it actually looks like that in real life. Hashtag no filter. Like, it's just incredible. The beauty of a sunrise. It's incredible how beautiful a sunrise can be. And it was so beautiful that some viewers sent us some pictures. We're going to take a look at a couple of them. This is a picture from Tish. We showed this one off this morning on GMM. She said it was a cool morning for coffee on the porch. Just look at that. Let's see if we can make that a bit bigger on the screen, open it in a new tab. Oh my goodness. Just incredible. I love that view. Look at the colors in the sky. It's just so cool. Let's see, I think we had another one. So this is actually from yesterday. Tammy sent us this in D'Iberville off of Lamy Bridge Road. So that was like 2 mornings in a row that we've seen views like this. Oh, look at that. Man. It just, it makes you happy to see. And I love, of course, the sky. But then look down below. You get a bonus sunrise in the water. Look at all those colors in the water there. So this is just incredible. So, yeah, that was how we started the day, with a pretty nice sunrise. But now let's talk about the sneaky low humidity that could get into the picture. So, you know, it is almost fall. You know, if you're counting, the day approaches that we'll see the calendar switch from summer to fall. That day coming up on September 22nd. That's the fall equinox, the moment that the sun's rays are directly angled over Earth's equator, which marks the transition from summer to fall on the calendar. And so it shouldn't surprise you that, you know, maybe we'll get a little fall feel here at some point. We are going to take a look at the humidity. So first of all, look at this. Over the last 24 hours, we have noticed in Gulfport maybe a general trend down, really just in the last few hours. From midnight to just around sunrise, we've seen the dew points falling by around 3 degrees. So the lower that dew point goes, the less dry the air feels. And so let's fast forward and take a look at the forecast for this afternoon. This is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What we're going to find is there's going to be this lower humidity coming in from Alabama. And that is going to just sneak its way in from the north and east right on into the Mississippi coast. Now, that means who will notice this the most out of our 6 southernmost counties? George County. They are the farthest north. They are the farthest east out of our 6 southernmost counties. So George County, Lucedale, Bendale, Agricola. It's going to be almost just a pumpkin spice feel in the air today. I mean, it's really going to be really fantastic fall-like. The closer you are to Alabama, the farther north of I-10 you are, generally speaking, in South Mississippi. That's how you're going to get to this stuff. That's where it's most noticeable. Now, you can be by the Alabama line, but then go south of I-10 and Pascagoula, it's not as noticeable because you're too close to the relatively muggier Mississippi Sound. And for Stone and Harrison counties, again, same rule applies. Places that are more east, like Biloxi, D'Iberville, as well as Ocean Springs and St. Martin and Jackson County, you're going to notice this a little bit more than your neighbors to the west, like in Gulfport and Long Beach and Pass Christian. And again, the I-10 rule still applies. You're going to notice this more Wool Market and Lyman than you will south of I-10 in Gulfport. You're going to notice this more north of I-10 in D'Iberville than you will closer to the Bay and closer to the Sound, closer to Biloxi. And then once you go to the west of that, it's not quite as noticeable for places like Hancock County, Diamond Head, Waveland, Bay St. Louis. You know, you still got upper 60s, so it's still pretty humid. But maybe a little more of a twinge of that in the air, Picayune as well as Poplarville. We can take a look at tomorrow, and we're already seeing some change Wednesday. Notice the numbers everywhere have come up. Now, it is still relatively comfortable, Wiggins, Lucedale, but most other areas beginning to see things turn muggier. And this will be especially noticeable along the coast. So whatever mugginess you have today or lack thereof, it is going to increase tomorrow. This pattern continues Thursday, in which all of the numbers increase again. So over the next 2 to 3 days, we're turning muggier and muggier. So something to keep in mind. We've got kind of the 5-day dew point trend. Remember, the lower the dew point, the drier it feels, the higher the dew point, the muggier it feels. We've got 2 locations on the map. The orange line is for Wiggins, and today you're basically pleasant. But by the time we get to Thursday, Wiggins is, muggier. It says at least 1 category muggier. Saturday, Friday, it's 2 categories muggier. For Gulfport, you're relatively muggy today. Places south of I-10, relatively muggy today. But whatever that is actually going to feel pretty nice compared to when you go up a category tomorrow, up another category again on Thursday. So it will feel noticeably muggier the later we go into the week. So enjoy today, maybe your last kind of relatively comfortable day as you have that kind of sneaky lower humidity in a few spots. Not only are we tracking an increase in mugginess later this week, we're also tracking an increase in temperatures too. Today's high temperatures will be in the upper 80s. So places like Pascagoula, Gaucher, Ocean Springs, Biloxi, Gulfport south of I-10, Long Beach, Pass Christian, Bay St. Louis, Waveland, 87 for a high. Everyone else north of I-10, Lucedale, Van Cleve, Wiggins, Big Level, Perkinston, Saussure, Woolmarket, Orange Grove, Lyman, The Kill, Diamond Head, Picayune, Poplarville, 89 today. And look as we go to the next 4 days. By the time we get to Friday, everyone's hotter. We warm up by 4 degrees on the coast from 87 to 91. We warm up by 5 degrees inland from 89 to 94. So yes, on Friday, we are forecasting lower and middle 90s, along with an increase in humidity. So maybe a little bit of a return to those summer vibes if you're not ready to let summer go, even though fall begins this month. Well, maybe you'll get one last taste of it there as we go into later this week with temperatures heating up and the humidity creeping up as well. But today, less humid. Today, less hot. So Tuesday, a perfect day to enjoy spending some time outside. I think it's going to be a great one. Well, that'll do it for today's edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.